वन्दे श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So in the previous class we were starting to discuss what bhakti is, and I did tell you, or we started seeing the definition of bhakti. So the word bhakti itself originates from the word bhaj or bhajaha, that is to worship, to pray. And bhakti itself is one of the means for attaining jnana. So it's one of the instruments which is used for a person to be qualified for jnana. Just as there are so many different methods available to a person. So if you want to have a doctorate in physics, then you got different methods of different avenues one can follow to get to that level. If you just buy or just go to Cambridge University and ask that I need to become a doctorate in philosophy or in physics, they say we can't admit you, because number one is you want to know, or you would like to have that particular knowledge, but you do not have the skills or abilities to understand what it is. So getting a doctorate in philosophy is the ultimate. Same way, getting moksha, understanding what moksha, freedom is, the ultimate, PhD one can get in Vedanta. So just as when you study for other aspects, you have different methods of study. You do home study, you go to tuition class, then you do revision, group study. So many things are there which you follow to attain this particular path. In the same way, jnanam is the ultimate destination or the ultimate goal for a person, or achieving knowledge of one's own self. Atma Jnanam is supposed to be the ultimate place to go. So for attaining this knowledge, you have to do, you can follow different methods. You can do puja, you can do worship, you can do yoga, Ashtanga yoga, you can do meditation. All these things are all ways of getting prepared. But these alone, just by for doing only one particular aspect, so just by doing Ashtanga yoga, or just by meditating, only doing meditation. Some people say I meditate for 1 hour in a day, and that 1 hour in a day is enough for me. The meditation which people do, it is actually for the mind to be peaceful. And only when the mind is peaceful, then only other things can go inside the mind. See, if your mind is always preoccupied, then there is a question of other thoughts coming into the mind, because mind itself is churning out thoughts. It is busy, it's in its own vyavahara. See, the transactional part of the brain is so active, the mind is so active, that it doesn't have time and space to load any other objects, look at anything else. So, meditation also is one aspect. And bhakti is also another aspect. So people follow bhakti, people follow meditation, people follow Ashtanga Yoga, or they have different ways of doing things. People do ghor tapas, standing on one leg, or they will say that I'll have upvas for 9 days. All of them are not going to just give you jnana. It is all going to give you the preparation required for you to be adequately ready for jnana. So bhakti also is one of these sadhana, one of the means. Contrary to the belief that one can attain jnanam by karma yoga, by bhakti yoga, by kriya yoga, and some other types of yoga, it is not possible. These are all instruments, these are all means of knowledge. So they are required for a person to get prepared. So bhakti is one of the highest requirements. A person cannot develop bhakti or cannot have bhakti or a devotion for Lord unless, number one, he knows who the Bhagavan is to some extent. He has got some, like I told you in the class before, there is Artha Bhaktaha, Artharthi Bhaktaha, Jigyasu, and Jnanihi. 4 types of bhaktas are discussed, which I gave you in the introduction also. So, this Artharthi Bhaktaha is also, they are all bhaktas. Jigyasu also is a bhakta. So they have some understanding about what the Bhagavan is. He's in some place. He's in some temple. He's got an image. He can be worshipped with his prayers. He can do mantras. He can do chanting. So many things are there. So all of them are come under bhakti. And for one has to be blessed with bhakti. Number one, there has to be an effort put forward by the person. Second thing is, there should be Bhagavan's anugraha. There has to be grace also. And you earn the grace of the Bhagavan only by living a life of karma yoga. So karma yoga is a contributor for bhakti. So without living karma yoga, you can never follow bhakti yoga. You cannot directly go to bhakti yoga saying that this is bhakti, I just want to do, because you do not have a concept of Ishwararpana Buddhi also. You do not have a concept of Prasada Buddhi also. So in bhakti, two fundamental things, that whatever I am doing for this is not for me, Bhagavan, it is actually for you. So there is a surrender of all activities you should do, which we saw in the karma yoga section. We do not need to, but you have to remember to join these things. So when I say Ishwararpana Buddhi, it means karma yoga, one of the aspects of that. So karma yoga is a means. So one has to develop from being just a karmi or just a doer of things to following to become a karma yogi, number one. And by living a life of karma yoga for many years, don't ask how many years. It can be 10 years, it can be 15 years. You would have been a karma yogi in the past life also. And past life also determines how you proceed this year also, in this life. So all of them contribute. So anything which you do here is not a waste. Even the class which you study, it's not a waste at all. It is also a type of upasana. It is also a type of bhakti only. you're doing. Bhakti towards the Lord, bhakti towards studying scriptures, or all these are all important. So, karmi, karma yoga, bhakti will lead to jnana. This is the step. You cannot directly gain jnanam just because you want to be qualified. Just I told you, you cannot just become a degree holder or go to college just because you want to go to college. You have to go from, primary class year 1, year 2, year 3. Maybe you're intelligent, you can go to year 5 directly. But you cannot just directly go from year 5 to year 10. You got to go step by step, follow, right? Same way, all these karmas which you do, they all contribute to making you a better karma yogi. And the karma yogi is a better equipped person to follow bhakti. So, bhakti is, number one, it is something which a person has got. Even a jnani also is a bhakta. So one cannot say that how come a jnani is like this. Jnani also is a bhakta, because without karma yoga, you cannot become bhakti, you cannot follow bhakti. Without having bhakti, you cannot become jnani also. See the dependency. It's very important that you need to have dedication to the Lord, you need to understand who the Lord is. Then only you will be blessed with the jnanam for proceeding to Shastra study. So if you are studying Shastram already, which means that you are already blessed with that jnanam, there is Bhagavan's anugraha is there. There are so many people out there who are all eligible, who can study or who like to do, but they cannot come or they cannot study not because they are not qualified. It is because the anugraha is not there. Bhagavan's grace is still not there yet for them. So the day when they are all putting efforts in their own ways. So some people are putting effort just in some different types of methods. Like one is meditation, somebody called Reiki, somebody is doing Reiki, somebody is doing pranic healing, someone is doing so many Vipassana yoga. So there are someone is doing Ashtanga yoga. So there are many people are doing lots of things without knowing why they are doing. So they are all doing because someone has told them to do it. It is good for your energy, good for your body. And you can scan the body, you can do all these things, you can feel where you are, energy is there, everything is there. But what is the purpose of having this is not understood. Because only the real guru can teach you the meaning of all these things. So you need to have a proper teacher, proper guru in your life, and also is a blessing. That also is Bhagavan's anugraha also is there. So bhakti is one which is the one with the thread which connects every person. And bhakti itself has a very broad category, can be classified as antara bhaktihi, bahya bhakti. At a very high level is called bahya bhaktihi and antara bhaktihi. So bahya bhakti means what? That bhakti which is always external, which is not internal, means always a bhakti towards an object which is outside of you. So always this bhakti is Dvaita bhakti. So bahya bhakti is also called Dvaita bhakti, because Dvaita means there are two things. One thing is there is a person who is praying, there is a prayer, and there is a pray. So Triputi Bedaha is there. So Triputi Bedaha means three different things are there. There are three differences are there. So Triputi means three. What is the three? The praying person is the first one. So you are the prayer, or I am the praying person, I am there. Then I am invoking a prayer. So there is an act called praying. So there is a mantra being chanted. So this is the second layer of personality. First layer personality is a person who is the upasaka. Then upasanam is being performed. Hope you're able to follow, right, Sridharji? Okay. You've got a headache or something? No, nothing. So upasanam is the act of doing some action. Then the one which is being worshipped also is an object of knowledge. So there is a Bhagavan which is outside of us. It could be image, it could be an idol, it can be anything. Whatever maybe you visualize or whatever you see there, it can be anything. For some people it can be Lakshmi, for the Seth or the people who are rich people, for them Lakshmi is a Seth, for them the safe Tijori is called, so Tijori Darshan is called the Bhagavan there. So if you look at what they will be sitting next to the Tijori only, the fridge, the safe. They will not leave the safe and go anywhere. So their asanam, everything will be near the safe. They can actually touch and see. They always be, because that is their Bhagavan. So that is what they worship, and that is what they think is the worship. So it's always, for every person, there is a Ishta Devata. There is a particular person, particular image, particular murti. All these things are there. Second thing is, in Bhakya Bhakti and in Antara Bhakti also, there is time factor involved. So you cannot just do Bhakti anywhere where you want. Correct? You'll have to either do in the morning. Because when you go to work, you cannot just keep praying there, you cannot do anything there. So there's a particular time when you have to do this. So you are governed by time. Correct? So time is a governing factor for bhakti. Any type of bhakti. Even Antara Bhakti also, sometimes it can be controlled by time. But generally 100% of the time, Bhakya Bhakti is governed by time. So objects governed by objects, number one. Governed by time, number two. Number three, governed by space. You have a dedicated place, or you need a dedicated place where you go every day, every time, and worship that particular object. Correct? So far, see, object limitation, time limitation, spatial limitation. All the three limitations or all the three weaknesses are attributed to the Bhakya Bhakti. Because you cannot go to somebody's house and pray in their house. Because it is their sanctum sanctorum. You cannot just go into their house and temple, sit there and do what you want to do. Correct? So you are restricted by that particular aspect. If you want to pray at a particular time or any time, you cannot go and pray at that time also, because you will not be clean. You will not be, Ashocham will be there. You will have other priorities. There will be disturbances. Right? Adhyatmikaha, Adi Bhautikaha, Adi Daivikaha. I think did I tell you that before? Adi Bhautikaha, Adhyatmikaha, and Adi Daivikaha. See, there are three types of obstacles in every person's life. So the word Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi, three times you chant. So the first Shanti is for the Adi Daivikaha. That means any disturbances which is caused by an act of God. It can be lightning, it can be thunder, it can be extreme weather conditions. So these are all disturbances which prevent you from doing this kind of act. Correct? Then Adi Bhautikaha. Adi Bhautikaha means the surroundings in which you are operating also can contribute a problem. Example, NBN not working. Adi Bhautikaha. Because it is not Adi Daivikaha. It is caused by people around you. Somebody is doing some cable digging there and you're getting affected. Or someone is running some Netflix movie down the end of the house there, running at full speed, and you're at the other end of the cable line, and he's taking all the bandwidth. So if you're running at the end of the cable, then you don't get connection. Sometimes you wonder what is the problem. Suddenly the guy switch off the TV and you get connected. So there are Adi, I'm just giving example. Adi Bhautikaha means it can be your own surroundings, can be your children, it can be your wife, it can be any disturbance, noise disturbance. All these things also can contribute to the sadhaka's performance of bhakti. So why I'm connecting? Because all of them are important. How bhakti is all this worship we do is affected by so many things. So Adi Daivikaha, Adi Bhautikaha, third thing is Adhyatmikaha. So Adhyatmikaha means what? One's own obstructions, pratibandhas, or pratibandhaha means obstacles relating to one's own self. Everything will be correct. NBN will be working correctly. There will be perfect weather outside will be there. You'll have the right temple, right murti will be there. Everything is correct. But you are not ready. When you go there, you say, my mind is not there anymore today. I cannot chant anything. Or you are chanting something there, some phone comes. You wake up and go. Some messages coming on WhatsApp. So all these are what? Adhyatmika. It means one's own mental preparation is not ready, because of which these disturbances prove as obstacles to a performance of a prayer or a worship. So Adi Daivikaha, Adi Bhautikaha, Adhyatmikaha. So to what of that we say Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. So 3 times Shanti is chanted mainly to prevent that, look, I am now going to perform or engage myself in some worship or prayer. So Bhagavan blessed me with protection from all these obstacles so that I can actually focus on what I want to do. So Bahya Bhakti, as I told you, is depending on these factors which are there, plus subject to object limitations, time limitations, and spatial limitations. Then on the other hand, we have what Antara Bhakti will come later on. First, we are going to analyze all the aspects of all the Bahya Bhakti. So, Bahya Bhakti also can be, you can write down, see what you do, you just write a tree form. I don't know if I can show you here. Let's see if I have a sketch of that or something like this. So you can form like this. You can see this board. Can you see the board? So you can put here, then you can put under that, you can put Bahya Bhakti, then keep going that. So you keep going like this, okay? So just draw like that. Okay. So if you look at that, the Bhashya Bhakti also has got always is Bhashya Bhakti is Anya Bhakti. So Bhashya Bhakti is called Anya Bhakti. That means the Bhakti which is not focused on the self. The Bhakti which is always focused on outside objects. Anya Bhakti. That is not on me, not on what I am studying, not who I am, but or not even on Bhagavan. Is always external, always on anything else. Anya Bhakti. Then in Antara Bhakti, we have mostly Ananya Bhakti. In Bhashya Bhakti also this Ananya Bhakti also is there. What is Ananya Bhakti? Unflinching Bhakti towards external objects. Unflinching Bhakti towards external objects. That means what? I have total commitment to pursuit of money. Unflinching attitude. Or unflinching Bhakti towards pursuit of materialistic gains. It's called Ananya Bhakti. That means there is no time, you're not thinking about it. So Ananya Bhakti always involves continuous thinking of something or continuous prayer or something. So in all your prayers, what are you worshipping? Let me have to buy that house, let me buy that car, let me have this, let me have this. So all the time you're thinking about only that. So this is called Ananya Bhakti in Bhakya Bhakti section. Okay. So in Bhakya Bhakti also, you have this Anya Bhakti, which is something which is small. I need to have this. So the different objects are there. But Ananya Bhakti here means that you have unflinching Bhakti towards only the external objects. You have to have that, and your dedication is only for having that. So all the Artharthis Bhaktas, they mostly come under this category. Okay, Artharthi Bhaktas, they come under the category of Anya Bhakti and Ananya Bhakti in Bhakya Bhakti. They do not have a concept of, they do not go other side of the tree. See, other side of the tree, the Antar Bhakti, they are not there. All these people I'm talking about on the left side of the tree. Then, under Anya Bhakti, you have something called Sakama Bhakti. Sakama Bhakti. Sakamaha means what? That Bhakti which is driven only by desire. So desire is the only cause, or desire is the main cause for one to pursue this particular path or becoming committed. It's called Sakama Bhakti. Also, Sakama Bhakti also is called Gauna Bhakti. Gauna Bhakti. So Gauna Bhakti means secondary Bhakti. That Bhakti which is not your primary objective, the secondary objective. The primary objective is always second secondary. As I said, we haven't come there. So Gauna Bhakti always is same as Sakama Bhakti. Then this Gauna Bhakti also follows Vidhi Bhakti. Vidhi Bhakti means that which is governed by the society. So Vidhi means rules or injunctions. Example, let us say a priest who comes to your house. He has got some, he will follow some rules. He may not do certain pujas in certain house from his house because his shastram doesn't allow, or his injunction doesn't allow him to do certain things. What the society will say. Example, he will not go to Shudra's house or somebody's house and do some puja for him. If somebody is not he doesn't know. He says, I want to do Satyanarayana puja at my house. Say he asks. The person who is practicing this particular type of bhakti, or bhakti is what is worship, praying, everything same. At the moment you take like this. So he is governed by vidhi, society rules. What will society say? Especially in the olden days, when my forefathers were in all Agraharam. They were all in. So in Agraharam, etc., you cannot, it's a close-knit community. There are only 2 streets or 3 streets. That's all we got. And in 2 to 3 streets, there will be all houses which will be all, only the particular type of people will be there. No other person can come inside Agraharam because you need the permission of somebody else to come into Agraharam. For that, you have to be qualified. You have to have studied Vedas, or you should have been a Brahmana, or you should have been an Upanayana, or you should have been allowed by somebody like an elder. Then only you will be allowed. I think you know about this. It's in the older traditional days. So these people are governed by, they call Vidhi Bhakti. Then another term you should know is called Vyabhicharini Bhakti. Vyabhicharini Bhakti. See how many definitions of Bhakti are given. Vyabhicharini Bhakti. That means a person who is interested in pursuing artha, possessions in every form, along with worshipping of the God. So he wants to worship the God, he will do that. Also, he will seek all materialistic approach. He wants property, he wants this, he wants success, everything is there. And the Bhagavan, he will also be pursuing this path. The Bhagavan, praying, doing rituals, etc., everything will do. With the idea is what? If I do seva to the Bhagavan, I will get more punyam, I'll get more money, I'll get more famous. I can become on the committee of the temple. So I'll be more prominent. So these are the kind of people, right? So Vyabhicharini. So you got so many types of bhakti in this category. Also, all these bhakti which are described here, they are actually called, you can put a big bracket saying they're called apara bhakti. So you can put a very big bracket saying that all these are apara bhakti. That means that bhakti which is not about the truth of the Lord, truth of the Bhagavan. Okay. Now we come to the other side of the tree. It's called Antara Bhakti. In this bhakti, it is purely mental. In Bahya Bhakti, there is Kayikam and Vachikam. That means there is oral and action. So you do pujas and you also do mantra chanting. So it is always in Bahya Bhakti. In Antara Bhakti, there is only manasam. Only mind is there. That means there is no real activity being performed. There's no prayer being chanted loudly. There's no flower being offered. So the person is just sitting there in front of the temple. And he or she is just closing the eyes and mentally chanting all the mantras, sitting quietly in a place. So even in Antara Bhakti also, it is possible that you would be having a place to sit. But now the object which is being focused is brought from an outside object to inside of you, which means now from you shifted the attention from the object which is looking outside. Now the object's image is captured in your mind. Hope you're getting right. The object's image is captured in your mind. Initially, you will be having Bahya Bhakti. You cannot directly go to Antara Bhakti without going to Bahya Bhakti, number one. You can, anybody who's starting Bhakti has to be first to go to Bahya Bhakti only. It is called Ekarupa Dhyana also. Ekarupa Dhyana, that is me and the Bhagavan. So by continuously doing this, there will come a stage when you will move towards this kind of a prayer where you do not need any more object. In Bahya Bhakti, the object is removed, your focus is disturbed because you do not know what to do now. The Shivalingam is not there. So the Shivalingam is removed. Then what will you do? Abhishekam, what will you do prayer on? The flowers are not there, what will you do? So you're dependent on so many objects. In Bhakya Bhakti, you're depending on not only the time, space and object limitations are there, you're depending also on the three obstacles, which we talked about. Adi Daivikaha, Adhyatmikaha, Adi Bhautikaha. Then you're also depending on the samagris. All the ingredients required are also a dependence. Before you get into that particular aspect, you have to get everything ready. You cannot get up in the middle and say, I forgot this, I forgot that. See, when you sit in the puja, right, when you sit in meditation or whatever you're doing, before you go, you're supposed to prepare everything neat. Is that right? So one should know what to prepare also. See the difficulty in all these things. I'm not criticizing, just see the difficulty. First of all, you have to have all these, pratibandhas, number one. You have a place, you don't have a place. So what will you do? You cannot pray. Time problem. Going to work in the morning at 7:30 in the morning, no time. Having rush breakfast, coffee, just go. Then object is not there because when you go to the office, you cannot focus on anything. There's no object. Come late at night, no time, get tired, go to sleep. Then all these pratibandhas. Thunder is there, lightning is there, too cold. Then you are also governed by whether you know the mantra or not, number one. Other thing. You should first know what to do, first of all. Right? Someone had told you that, okay, you perform this puja like this. Someone has told you the chanting of the mantras. You chant like this. And this is the method, order you should do. Like you must not randomly just do random what you want. You just can't say, I'll offer flower like this and throw and go. You got to have a method. Like you cannot do, in traditional culture, what we have is, in North India, they always offer the water to sun god in the morning. As soon as they get up in the morning, they will, because they may not do Sandhyavandanam, they do not know, they may not be initiated into that. So they will offer in some parts of the states, they offer water to the sun god early in the morning, having clean vastram, taking bath, and then they will, after that, they'll go do their pujas. In whatever dialect they want to chant, they will know. But they know the method, they know the process. So you're dependent on this also. Number one, you're dependent on the method, number one. Dependent on the ingredients required for it. So all these are limitations in the Bahya Bhakti. So one has to really be prepared. One has to really know what he's doing for you to perform that kind of bhakti. If one item is not there, supposing you do Rudra Abhishekam, there are 11 types of Rudram Abhishekams are there. 11 ingredients are there, 11 types. And every Abhishekam you do, you have to offer one type of Abhishekam to the Lord. and you're committed to do Ekadasha Rudram in your house. Say you do it regularly. If you don't have the item, then you are definitely obstructed by the particular aspect of not able to perform this, correct? So you will not get the punyam, number one, because you're not doing it as per the rituals, as per the Shastra's injunctions. So all these things are applicable in all the Bahya Bhaktis. All the limitations are there. So whichever you do Sakama Bhakti, you do, Bahya Bhakti, whichever you do, all of them has got this three things, all they are there. Now we come to Antara Bhakti. The Antara Bhakti, what is required? You still need to know something. You should have a place where you can sit. That you cannot avoid. But you can go to any quiet place. You do not need to be in front of an object, because you do not need to be sitting in front of a temple or something like this. You can go to any quiet place. It can be even in your study room, or it can be a campus room, or it can be your own private room where you're having something which nobody comes there, or at least for an hour nobody comes there, and you can just be there and tell everybody, look, I'm going to meditate. Meditation room, you can have a room like that. Whoever wants to go, they can go and sit there for 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever you want to meditate, and they can do it. So you got that is under control, because you have moved away one step from Bahya Bhakti to Antara Bhakti. So after doing all these things which you're doing now, you realized the fallacy. Now you understood it's difficult, and Bhagavan has blessed you. Say, okay, you go now, do this. So slowly your mind is now adapting to having the picture of the Bhagavan, the Lord, in your mind. And now you're not restricted by time and object, because you can go anytime you feel like meditating, you can just go and sit by yourself, right? Whereas if you got a temple there, say if you got a Adhishtanam, you got a puja room there, you'll have to go to the place only and do puja, right? You cannot just sit there and throw flower from here. Just because you have to go there and sit in front of the Bhagavan and then offer everything there. You have to do Naivedyam, you have to do Karpuram, all, Dhupam, Darshi, everything you should do. In this case, what is required? You're not going anywhere there. No samag is required, ingredients not there. You're not worried about, oh, have I got Dhupam, have I got Darshanam, have you got Deepam, have you got Naivedyanam? You don't have anything. All you have got is what? You're just sitting there in one place, and you decide now to bring the object which you have got many years, you've got this image entrenched now, and you're closing your eyes, sitting in one place, keeping your body straight, breathing slowly, and then now you're just meditating slowly on the object itself. So the object which is outside has come into your now internal part of the brain. Internally, the mind is sitting there. Correct? Now, you may need to chant the mantra, you do not need the mantra, it doesn't matter. Because your image is, or whatever is the image is there, is already being entrenched now. So now your mind is only focused on the image. You're not looking at anything else at the moment. Because your eyes are closed, and slowly when your eyes are closed, you are practicing that aspect where you are trying to shut down all the other aspects which is coming to you, hearing sounds, making movements, or getting disturbed. You are trying to restrict yourself. So in Antara Bhakti, it is one step superior to Bahya Bhakti, where you are not restricted by, number one, objects. Second thing, by space also. Time limitations is still there, because you cannot be sitting there all the time in one place also. You disappear. Just example, I disappear, for 1 hour class. They will keep on asking me, How long is your class? When will you come back? But time limitation is there. I mean, for them, for me, there's no limitation. I do not have any time limitation because I can be here, there, doesn't matter. But for the external people, if you locked yourself there for 1 hour, they want to go there or they want to come and talk to you. So still time limitation is there. You cannot be sitting there for 6 hours a day in the same place, one place, and say, I will not come out because I'm having this anandaha of sitting in one place. Who will do other work? So you'll have to get out. So when you get up again from meditation, what happens? You get disturbed. You go back again to the same status as before. You deal the same anger, same anxiety, same issues, same thing. Again, you want to get, agitated. You get, no, let me go to meditation. Again, you run there. But this cannot happen for a long time. Right? So Antara Bhakti also is better than Bahya Bhakti because you have cut down 2 aspects of it. Object limitation and space limitations. You can now at least, somebody is talking to you, if you're mentally strong, you can switch off and you can just be focusing on what is being said there. Sometimes people will come and tell you that, are you dumb? Are you deaf? You're not hearing anything. Because you're not hearing anything because you are now practicing that aspect of meditation or really engrossed in that particular thought which you want to engross. So this is what happens in Antara Bhakti. Antara Bhakti really is all the people, all the big saints who are there. Mirabhai, you look at it, or you look at Ramdas, Asurdas, Tulsidas, all the people who are there. All the big saints, Sant Jnaneshwar, all the people who were there, they were all, the images were stored in their mind. And they were only talking internally to themselves. They are not talking to anybody else. There was no prayer being performed outside. There was no action being performed outside. Everything was manasikaha, everything is inside the mind. So one of the aspects of Antara Bhakti is that this inside. So number 1 is you have moved the object, shifted the attention from outside object to inside your mind. Okay, so you move 1 step closer. So now you are no longer dependent on whether the murti is there or not. Somebody will take the Shivalinga, okay, you take it. Somebody will take the temple, okay, you take it. Because you are not affected by it anymore. Previously you are affected. I don't know, how can you take this temple? If it's not there, means the space is empty. I cannot, how will I just look at the wall and do something? So there should be something. But when you practice all these steps and you become wiser, then you naturally shift from, you cannot be always doing the same thing again and again. You will question as to why I'm doing this. There will come a time when you have to shift from Bahya to Antara. It will happen logically. You do not need to do anything great about it. It is just like, you're moving from first standard to year 12. What do? Do you do anything great? You just keep chugging along. You just keep going after year, you just go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this, you keep going. Finally, you are saying, oh, I'm a graduate. So you graduated, in certain degree, certain aspect. So the same way, you become knowledgeable, then all the previous things are all forgotten. You only take what is relevant for you, and then that is what is important. You do not take everything from first standard to graduation. Every year you progress. You leave those things, take new things, progress, take new things, progress. Then finally, when you come to your graduation day, you only know what is required for you to lead your life correctly, or how to get a job. Is that right? Or succeed in life. This is what is. Do you forget whether I had ice cream in class 1 or not? Whether I had 5 paisa or 10 in my days, I'm talking about. We had, if you had 10 paisa, it's a big thing. Somebody bring 10 paisa or even 4 annas. It's a big thing. It's a rich person. But we could never see that kind of a thing. So you don't remember those things. But you leave those things and you mature. Same way, you mature from Bahya Bhakti to Antara Bhakti. So when Antara Bhakti becomes strong, it leads you to Nishkamya Bhakti. So Antara Bhakti leads you to Nishkamya Bhakti. Nishkamya means what? Nishkama Karmaha means where the bhakti is now not performed for achievement of materialistic objects. The bhakti is performed for as a karma yogi. So the bhakti is performed with a view to offer everything to Bhagavan and receiving benefits as ordained by the karma. So you're not depending on the results what I want. In Bahya Bhakti, always results are governed by what you want. So Vyabhicharani Bhakti, I told you, Vyabhicharani Bhakti, no, the Vidhi Bhakti, all these things are in the other aspects of the Bahya Bhakti. In Antara Bhakti, sorry, Nishkamya Bhakti. So Nishkamya Bhakti means that bhakti which is not governed by any kama or desire. You are not driven by to perform a particular worship or ritual because you are driven by desire. You are doing it because for the love of the Lord. You are doing it because you appreciate the Bhagavan's beauty, you appreciate the Srishti itself, you appreciate the life given to you to perform this kind of expressing a gratitude to the Bhagavan. See, here you should understand two things. There's something called prayer, there's something called worship. Both are different. But sometimes we loosely define them. I am worshipping, I am also praying. You cannot be doing two things. Prayer is an expression of your helplessness, choicelessness, and seeking Bhagavan's grace. So prayer is always a request, asking for something. It can be materialistic. It can be for knowing who the Bhagavan is. And it is something because a person cannot fulfill the wish best just by himself. Or there's nobody else along in society who can perform that particular wish for him. So the prayer is intense. Whereas a person continuously prays for many, many years, there will come a time when the prayer will actually culminate into understanding called Antara Bhakti, Nishkamya Bhakti. In that status of mind, you start worshipping the Bhagavan. So worshipping is an expression of gratitude to the Bhagavan. Prayer, expression of helplessness, choicelessness. Worship, expression of gratitude and thankfulness. See the difference? In worship, there is no asking, there is no praying. In worship, there is only understanding that Bhagavan, you have given me everything what I require. I do not need anything, and I thank you, I express my gratitude. So this is the fundamental difference between worship and prayer. In Bahya Bhakti, it is governed by prayer. In Antara Bhakti, it is governed by worship. Because Nishkamya Karma, what do? You do not ask anything. So Nishkamaha means what? Without any desire. Or without having any particular desire in mind. Yes, you have a desire to become a jnani, a moksha, etc. But you're not really, hell-bent on this. You're not pushing forward everything because of that. You're not piling desire after desire, desire after desire like this. So you're really not I'm doing what I can, and I'm ask the Bhagavan, the grace is there, and I will get there one day. So this is the understanding of the person. So Nishkamya Bhakti. Nishkamya Bhakti also is called Avyabhicharini Bhakti. Avyabhicharini Bhakti. See, Vyabhicharini Bhakti is the one who loves the family, loves the materialistic properties, and also the God. In Avyabhicharini Bhakti, only Bhagavan is sought. Only the Bhagavan, only the Lord is sought. That means he or she is no longer seeking for materialistic pleasures. If the pleasure comes along, he'll accept it. It is not saying that somebody is coming, see, let's say some good luck comes to your place. You earn some good income, or somebody's, money is coming to you. You don't expect. Shastram doesn't say that you must just throw it back. Shastram says there's nothing wrong in receiving something which you don't really first pray for. And when the money comes to you, do not be, overzealous in that. Use the money for some good purpose. Whatever you need if you need the money for your security, artha, etc., you do that. But anything excess which you got, which you don't need, you can spend the money on other things, like, donating to some good cause, building temples, serving the teacher, those kind of so many things are there which you can do, donating things, feeding the poor. They're all satkarmas. So those are all also comes under Nishkama Bhakti, because the person is not interested in all these things. So that is how slowly how the Bhakti turns. See this, all these things are in the Bhakya Bhakti side, which 80% of the people do this. Most people are in the same bucket of Bhakya Bhakti. Antar Bhakti very few practice, because Antar Bhakti is difficult. For that you need a lot of maturity, mental preparedness is required. So Avyabhicharini Bhakti, then Ragatmika Bhakti. So that which is not governed by any rituals or by society or by practices. Vidhi Bhakti, I told you, for Bahya Bhakti, correct? So Ragatmika Bhakti means what? That which is not governed by any particular society's injunctions or by rituals or by practices. If a person comes and wants to study, learn from you. Even today, our society, even Sydney also, established Vadyars first will ask you, have you done Upanayanam? If you want to study Veda Parayanam, if you want to study Vedas, he will first ask you, I cannot teach you if you're not a Brahmana, number one. I cannot teach you if you're not done Upanayanam. This is the Shastra's view. This is the view of the Karmakanda section, where it says that the person cannot be taught Shastram because it is like this. That is for the Karmakanda section. And it is also, most of the mutts, the famous mattas, etc. are there. They also have the same thing, that moksham can be sought only by sannyasis. Moksham cannot be, you cannot study the Vedas, you cannot study the Upanishads, you're not allowed to even touch the book, Bhagavad Gita, unless you are a sannyasi or sannyasini. How will you become a sannyasi, first of all? How will you become a sannyasi? Sannyasi requires mental purity. How do you get mental purity? You cannot get mental purity just get married for 60 years in the same place, same people, same issues. How can you get mental purity? You cannot. This is why our Swamiji left the institution. He left the institution mainly because he just couldn't accept the fact Because moksha is the fundamental principle for every living being in this universe. He can be a Muslim, he can be a Christian, he can be Hindu, he can be a Shudra, he can be a Vaishya, he can be anybody. He can be a woman, he can be a child, can anybody. Everybody has got a fundamental requirement to be free, to enjoy life as they, for permanent happiness. In the process of they want to study this particular aspect, if Vedanta Shastram tells you that this is what you are, Tattvamasi, and if you are restricted from the following, then it is not acceptable in the Shastra at the overall level. You know what I'm saying? In Antara Bhakti, these things get eliminated. You no longer now are worried about the class of society. You're no longer worried about the people. All you're interested is whether the person is committed or not, whether the person has got interest or not. And how do you determine? By the Shraddha, the commitment you do for studying Shastra. So that is what is called Ragatmika Bhakti, the one which is not limited by customs and rituals. Then this Antara Bhakti also is called Prathama Bhakti or primary Bhakti. Correct? Or Mukhya Bhakti. Prathama Bhakti, Mukhya Bhakti. English you can say as primary Bhakti. So in this Mukhya Bhakti, only the focus is only on the Bhagavan. Everything I am doing is only for the Bhagavan, and there's nothing else here. So all the activities which I do, Manasam, which I do, all the prayers which I do mentally, I go to temples, I meditate, all of them which I do is mainly only for Bhagavan only, there's nothing else. All this put together is called Parabhakti. So all the activities under Antara Bhakti is called Parabhakti or Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti. Imagine that if I want to take Narada Bhakti Sutra, it will take me 1 year to complete it. Around 84 verses are there. 81 verses. 9 times 9. 9 times the Bhakti which I haven't come across here. So all of this put together is called Parabhakti. That means Bhakti of the highest nature. So Para means that which is of this supreme nature. Also, it is called Nirguna Brahma Upasanam. Nirguna Brahma Upasanam. Nirgunaha means that which is free from gunas, which has got no attributes. The Bhagavan has got 2 eyes, he has got 4 arms, he has got Shankha Chakra Gada Haste, all this visualization, right? So whenever you visualize Vishnu or any Hanuman, you see a Gada sitting there, person there, right? And you have a tail. So you do not have any of these things in Ananya Bhakti. Because in Ananya Bhakti, there is nothing which is attributable. So it's called Nirguna Brahma Upasana. And Bhakya Bhakti and all the things which are described this side of the tree, left hand side, it's called Saguna Brahma Upasana. Saguna Brahma Upasanam means worship of the Lord, worship of Bhagavan with Gunaha, Sa Gunaha. So Saguna Brahma Upasanam, Nirguna Brahma Upasanam. Is it clear? Any questions so far? Anyone?
I have no questions. I have no questions.
Okay. Sriramji, so far you're okay? Bhavaniji, you're okay so far?
All good. Shankarji, thanks.
All good. Yes. Thanks.
The depth of bhakti is phenomenal. That's why Narada Bhakti Sutra is very important. Even the great Valmiki, so the word Valmiki is come from Val means ant, and Miki means the person who was engulfed by the ant. He was sitting in an ant hill. He was a robber before. Valmiki was a thief, ordinary thief. So he once, he used to what you call steal other people's belongings and go and feed his family. So the family was eating because he is married to his wife, his children are there. So he was feeding his papa karmas to them. So one day this Narada also is coming there singing all Narayana, Narayana, Narayana singing there. And this person comes and jumps in front of Narada and says, "Give me what else you got. I'll take whatever you got." He says, "I only have got this tanpura and then I got all these rags, my shirt and dhoti, whatever is there. You take this." He says, "You are a poor person." He said, "Yes, I am a poor person. I do not have anything. You take what you want." And then he says, "You're not afraid of me." He said, "Why should I be afraid of you?" He said, "I believe in the Bhagavan and Bhagavan is taking care of me. I am one with the Bhagavan." Then he's interested suddenly by looking at Narada's eyes and this speech. Because he has got some purva karma, he's doing there is something inside the person. Even thief also, there is a conscience. There's also, thief also has got a righteous conscience because he's doing his dharma. According to him, he's doing his dharma correctly or not. It's important, right? So there's a conscience, there's a process in him thinking about this. So thinking kindles. And then Narada gives him a lecture on all these righteous things. So he asks, if you think that you are doing a great thing by robbing people and feeding your family, go and ask your wife if she is willing to partake in your sins, whether she is willing to become an acceptor of your sins or a person who actually be enjoying the sins. So he went and asked his wife. He says, "I've been stealing and feeding you all, and I've been accumulating a lot of papam. Would you be happy to share some of the papam with you?" They say, "No, it is your problem. It is not my problem." So all the sukham, etc. is enjoyed by the family, everybody else. But the papa karma which you do is only have to be borne by you. That is where jnanam comes into the picture and bhakti becomes, then he becomes Valmiki, then he wrote the Ramayana which is there. So what I'm trying to tell you is, this transformation will happen instantly. You do not know, it may happen tomorrow, it may happen after 6 years, it may happen 10 years, it may never happen also. So what is required is, Shraddha, commitment, and belief, the Shastra. In fact, next class when we continue this topic again, a little bit more, we will see what is prohibited in the Bhakti philosophy. So there are a lot of things to be said, but also there are many things you must not also do. There are 64 things that Narada says you must not do in Bhakti. We don't have time to do 64, but we look at just maybe 3 or 4 just to give you an idea of the top 4 or 5 things which you must not do as a bhakta. So if you are following Bhakti philosophy, then follow that. But understand that Bhakti alone will not propel you to Jnanam. Bhakti is only a sadhanam or means for becoming Jnanam. So ultimately Jnanam is important. Because in Jnanam only Bhakti actually shines. Only when Jnanam is there, Bhakti actually becomes luminous. Just mere Bhakti will not give you the luminous capacity. So with this, we stop for today's class. And next class, we continue to see a little bit of more Bhakti. then we will start to see some aspects of Guru Mahima, or who is a Guru, and those aspects we'll see. So if you've got any questions or anything, you can write it in your book, or you can put the question in WhatsApp. And I'm not stopping you from writing anything or what you can write. You can write anything what you want, as long as it's relevant to the subject and it's a meaningful question. So the question has to be a targeted question. It should be meaningful. It should be related to what we are learning in the class. If you don't have any questions, also it's fine. You can write it in your book. And next, as I told you, the Shastra study itself will lead you systematically to one by one. It will unfold. Lots of things which you have in mind will get clarified. You will understand why this is good, why that is not good. You will understand why I should follow this method. Why should I not follow that method? So you will know all the differences between that, and it will help you decide over a period of time. So before this class, you would have some different idea about bhakti. Probably now you would have got a little bit more idea about what bhakti is. And so many aspects are there, so many types of bhakti being performed. Right? Om Purnamadah Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So tomorrow we have our Purusha Sukta Bhashya class. So those people who want to know to chant also, they can practice, because the text is there. So chanting will be there. You can follow the chanting method. Most people know chanting already. Some people who do not know, they are more than welcome to join. The class will be detailed. This is not just going to be just chanting class. It will be a bit detailed class where we understand all aspects of, bhakti will be there, Ishvara will be there, all aspects will be there. Srishti, Maya, Prakriti, all will be connected to this. Because Purusha Sukta is just not only a chanting, it is a complete Upanishad. So that's why it's the foremost text to be chanted in any Veda Parayana. No Veda Parayana starts without chanting Purusha Sukta. No ritual starts without chanting Purusha Sukta. Because hope you know, whoever people are performing puja at home, every Vadyar will chant Purusha Sukta. Whether you any ritual, Ganapati puja you do, Shanti puja you do, Purusha Sukta is mandatory. You will chant this. That's why it is actually at the highest level. Okay, I'll see you next class. Hari Om.